Ever feel like trade shows are kind of, a mystery? Like this whole world you just don't get.
A lot of people feel that way.
Yeah. Well, today we're diving deep into what it really takes to actually succeed at these things.
Definitely more to it than just like showing up, right?
Right. So we've got this company, Stand. They're down in Cancun. Basically, they do all the booth stuff, the physical side of things,
Interesting.
and their website. All about speed, efficiency, like bam, bam, bam. We've also got their brochure for exhibitors. Tons of advice in there.
So what they do versus what they tell others to do, always a good comparison.
Exactly. And first thing that jumps out, they're like, 12 to 15 days, we'll get you set up. Pushing this C4 plus A4 plus counter setup.
Wow. In trade shows, time is everything, right? Deadlines are super tight. Miss them, you miss your whole audience.
True.
And I bet that's why they're boasting about like over 1,000 happy clients in 40 plus years, trying to buid that trust fast.
Yeah, but get this, they make a big point about owning all their materials.
Yeah.
No subcontractors.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Isn't that kind of, I don't know, risky? What if they need something specific? Wouldn't it be easier to outsource sometimes?
I see your point. It's a trade-off they're making, right? Control over flexibility.
Yeah.
So on one hand, they control the quality, the speed, no waiting for some other company, right? But yeah, maybe less adaptable.
It's interesting how much they highlight that, though.
It is. It's something to think about with any vendor, right? What are their priorities? Are they all about speed and control, even if it means maybe they can't change things up easily?
Good point. All right, now, the brochure, they are all about research. Like, research, research, research.
Makes sense. You got to know the game before you play it.
Yeah. So they break it down into two things. First, knowing the trade fair itself, like inside and out.
Right. What's the crowd like? Is it, CEOs or more of a general audience? What's the vibe? Formal or laid back? That all changes how you approach things.
Oh, for sure. And then, of course, the competition. I mean, you could have the best booth, but if it's surrounded by, like, 10 other companies doing the same thing.
Lost in the noise, they want you to really dig into who you're up against. What are they good at? Where do they fall short? And most importantly, what makes you different?
Yeah.
And this isn't just trade show stuff. Any field, right? You got to know your landscape.
So true. There's this one tip. It's so simple, but I loved it. Setting specific goals. They say, like, close at least 10 sales instead of just make sales.
Oh, I see what they're doing.
Have you seen businesses mess that up?
All the time. It's so easy to just get caught up in the moment, the excitement of the event, and you forget to, like, actually measure what's working.
Yeah.
But that number 10 sales, bam, it's your benchmark. It lets you adapt. Like, day one is slow. Now you know exactly how much you got to hustle.
I bet some of their success stories come from just that simple advice.
Right. Sometimes the obvious stuff is what we miss the most.
Now, the design advice, it's kind of funny. They start by saying, don't worry, you don't need to be a logistics expert.
Yeah.
But then they plug their own design services.
Haha, classic. Find the problem, present yourself as the solution, right? But honestly, they're not wrong. Good booth design, it's an art. Visuals, how people flow through the space, making it functional and eye-catching.
Totally. And they're big on colorful brochures and live product demos. Is that still a thing? I mean, everyone's on their phone these days.
True, but think about it. Amid all the screens, a brochure, you can touch it, right? It's different. And a demo, you're not just watching, you're participating.
So they're going for that sensory experience, something that sticks with you.
Exactly. It's a good lesson for anything you're doing, really.
Yeah.
How do you engage people beyond just what they see?
Okay, yeah. Now, staffing. They're all about finding people who are not only knowledgeable, but also super friendly, great communicators.
You'd think that'd be a given, right?
Right.
But in that environment, the pressure of the crowds, it's easy to get flustered. And your staff is your brand in that moment.
Yeah, I've had those experiences where, like, one bad interaction at a booth just turned me off the whole company.
It happens. So even if you're not doing trade shows, this applies to any customer-facing role, right? First impressions matter.
So true. Okay, marketing section, it's the usual stuff, social media, website, yada, yada. But then they hit you with, offer incentives to visit the booth?
Yes. The hook.
Like, do you really need that? Don't people come to these things to see what's new anyway?
Sure, but you've got to stand out. Think about it. A crowded hall, hundreds of booths. Why should someone pick yours?
Okay, right.
A discount, a giveaway, even just something fun to do. It creates that buzz, draws people in.
So it's all about having that unique thing, right? Like, what can I get here that I can't get anywhere else?
Exactly. And that applies to anything you're promoting, not just booths. What's your incentive? What makes you special?
Okay, their last point is about data capture and follow-up. Which makes sense, but honestly, who actually likes filling out those contact forms?
Yeah, they can be a pain.
Right. They always want, like, your whole life story.
But for businesses, those forms are gold. Each one's a potential customer. The trick is, how do you turn that initial interaction into a real relationship?
Yeah, good point. They mentioned QR codes, apps.
Yeah.
Maybe the future is, like, something even more engaging.
Maybe. That's something to think about, right? How do we make data capture less of a chore and more, I don't know, fun?
I like that. All right, so we learned a lot from Stand, from, like, the nitty-gritty of setting up a booth to, the psychology of grabbing attention.
It's interesting how they're a booth company, but they give away so much advice. It's like they want you to succeed even before you hire them.
Yeah, almost like they're saying, we know this stuff works, so here's how to get the most out of it.
And that makes them look good, right?
Yeah.
Like they're the experts, they've got your back.
Smart move.
It makes me wonder if we could do that more, sharing our knowledge to help others.
Ooh, I like that. Like, what if we approached every conversation, every meeting, like it was our own little trade show booth?
I love that. We're all exhibitors in a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to connect, make an impact.
Yeah. So instead of just going through the motions, we think about, like, okay, what's my message here? What value am I bringing?
It's like we're all running our own personal booth, trying to get people to stop by and chat.
Exactly. And just like Stand emphasizes that prep work for those trade shows, we can be just as intentional in our everyday interactions.
So instead of just, like, winging it, we do our research. We pay attention to the other person, really listen to what they're saying.
We set goals for the conversation, even if it's just, make this person feel heard.
And we think about how to make it engaging. Like, instead of just talking at someone, we bring our ideas to life, we tell stories, we build those genuine connections.
It's about making every interaction count, right? Turning the ordinary into something a little more meaningful.
I love that. It's like taking the best of the trade show world and bringing it into our everyday lives.
Exactly. And I think that's a perfect place to pause for now.
Yeah. Lots to think about already. Okay, so we talked about Stand owning all their materials, right? No subcontractors. Made me wonder if that's like a trend.
That's a good question. I don't have, hard data on that specifically.
Yeah.
But there is definitely this push toward more control, over supply chains, production, all that.
Right.
And for a company like Stand owning it all, it's got to be part of their image too, not just logistics.
So they're like, we're in charge, things get done right and fast. You can trust us.
Exactly. It's a differentiator, right? But it also kind of hints at this bigger idea they're pushing, that you got to understand the whole ecosystem of your business. They know booths, sure, but they're also thinking about what makes exhibitors successful beyond just the physical stuff.
And that's where the research comes in, right?
Yeah.
The brochure was huge on that. Research the trade fair, research the competition.
Yeah. I bet a lot of people skip that, honestly.
You think?
They figure, we've been doing this for years, we know the drill. But things change, right? Competitors get smarter. And even the most experienced companies, they got to stay sharp.
I'm picturing someone showing up with a booth that was, like, cutting edge 5 years ago. Now it's totally dated.
Exactly. Stand is all about being proactive. They're like, who's the audience this year? What are they talking about? What's the competition doing that's new?
They're like, don't get complacent. Stay curious.
Right. And that goes beyond trade shows, doesn't it? I mean, think about your work. Are you keeping up with the latest stuff, new trends, new ideas?
It's so easy to fall behind, isn't it?
It is. So good reminder from Stand to never stop learning. Now, about those specific goals. Close 10 sales. Do you think most exhibitors actually do that? Walk in with a number in mind.
I don't know. It's easy to just get overwhelmed, Trying to survive the day, you forget the big picture.
Stand knows that, though. They're like, without a target, how do you even know if you're winning?
It's like running a race with no finish line.
Exactly. But that number, 10 sales, boom, it's your finish line. It tells you, are you on pace? Do you got to change your strategy? It makes all the difference.
And then afterwards, you can actually analyze, right, did you hit the goal? Why or why not?
It's about learning, not just doing. And this applies everywhere, right? Not just trade shows. Your own goals, whatever they are. New product launch, closing a deal, learning a new skill. Are you setting targets? Are you measuring?
Stand just reminded us that clear goals, they're the foundation
Sure.
for anything.
Basics, but crucial. Okay, let's talk design and staffing, because they had some interesting takes on that.
I thought it was funny how they're like, don't worry about the logistics, but then boom, we do design services.
Right. But honestly, booth design is complex. It's your stage, you know,
Yes.
you're showcasing your brand. You got to engage people.
Make a good first impression.
It's psychology, lighting, colors, materials. It all matters.
And they're big on those colorful brochures and the live demos. But is that still effective? I mean, it seems kind of old school.
It is and it isn't. Think about it. In a world of screens, something you can actually touch, it stands out. In a demo, it's interactive.
That's that sensory thing again, right?
Totally. Like reading a menu versus tasting the food.
Makes sense.
So Stand is reminding us, how do we create those multisensory experiences? It's a challenge worth thinking about.
What about staffing? They had a lot to say about that, too. Finding people who are not just knowledgeable, but, like, super friendly, you know?
Oh, yeah, you'd think that'd be obvious.
Right.
But under pressure, things happen, and your staff is your brand, right there on the floor.
I've definitely walked away from a booth because the person was, like, rude or unhelpful.
It happens.
Yeah.
So even if you're not running a booth, this is about hiring, right? Customer-facing roles, those first impressions are everything.
They even talked about training staff to, like, handle tough questions, difficult people.
Because it's going to happen. Trade shows are high energy, things go wrong. You need a team that can roll with it.
Like a well-rehearsed play, everyone knows their part.
Exactly. And that's true anywhere, really, not just booths. Invest in your people, train them right. It pays off big time.
Now, incentives. They were big on that. Offer something to get people to your booth.
It makes sense, right? You got to stand out somehow.
Yeah.
Stand knows a good incentive. It's a magnet, discount, giveaway, whatever. It creates that buzz.
And it ties back to knowing your audience, too, right? What do they actually care about?
Exactly. What's going to make them stop and say, I got to see this?
They even talked about using incentives for data capture, like sign up for our email list, get a discount.
Smart. Turns a simple transaction into a relationship.
Yeah.
So even in the digital age, those real-world interactions, they matter.
Okay, last thing. They talked about data capture and follow-up, which I get it, it's important. But those contact forms?
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
They ask for everything.
But for businesses, it's like gold, right? Each form is a lead. The trick is, how do you make it less painful?
Right. Stan mentioned QR codes, apps. Maybe the future is something even cooler. Maybe. Something to think about for everyone listening, right? How do we make data capture fun?
Okay, so big picture, we've learned a lot about booths, but also about strategy, psychology, all that.
Stan, they're sneaky, aren't they? They rent booths, but they give away all this advice.
Right. It's like they're not just selling you a booth, they're selling you success.
Makes them look good too, you know? Like, we know our stuff, trust us.
It's a win-win.
And it makes me think, we could all do that more, couldn't we? Share what we know to help others.
Like, what if every conversation we have, it's like our own little trade show booth?
I love that. We're all exhibitors, in a way.
Right. Trying to connect, share our ideas, make an impact.
So instead of just going through the motions, we think about, okay, what's my message here? What value am I bringing?
It's like we're all running our own personal booths, trying to get people to stop by and chat.
Exactly. And just like Stan emphasizes that prep work for those trade shows, we can be just as intentional in our everyday interactions.
So instead of just, like, winging it, we do our research. We pay attention to the other person, really listen to what they're saying.
We set goals for the conversation, even if it's just, you know, make this person feel heard.
And we think about how to make it engaging. Like, instead of just talking at someone, we bring our ideas to life, we tell stories, we build those genuine connections.
It's about making every interaction count, right? Turning the ordinary into something a little more, I don't know, meaningful.
I love that. It's like taking the best of the trade show world and bringing it into our everyday lives.
Exactly. And I think that's a perfect place to pause for now.
Yeah, lots to think about already. It's like we're all out there with our little booths, right? Trying to get people to notice us.
And just like Stan helps their clients, you know, stand out in that big convention hall, we can use these same ideas to make ourselves more, I don't know, memorable.
More impactful, yeah.
Exactly. So we can be more successful in our own way.
I love that. It's like even the boring stuff, the everyday conversations, they can be chances to connect, to grow. Yeah. If we just think about them differently.
It's what Stan is getting at, right? Being mindful, being proactive, creating value, building relationships. That's the key.
So big takeaway as we wrap up this trade show deep dive. What's the one thing you want people to remember?
Don't underestimate the power of being prepared, having a strategy, and really genuinely wanting to connect with people, whether it's a giant trade show or just, you know, life in general.
Yeah.
Those things make all the difference.
Amazing. Big thanks to Stan for, like, accidentally giving us so much to think about.
Seriously, their website and that brochure, so many good insights.
And everyone listening, I hope this sparks some ideas, give you some tools you can actually use.
Remember, you're always on display in a way, so be intentional. Be prepared. Make those interactions count.
Love it. That's a wrap on this episode of The Deep Dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those good questions, the ones that lead to, the unexpected stuff.